And we are a go. Welcome everybody to another week of the Multiverse. I am Bad Ty Bricks. This week we have a banger of a show. We'll be talking about Dave Chappelle, the closer, and whether or not he's gone too far, and a couple of more issues. But give us a second. We'll be right with you. And it's yours. Whose world is this? It's mine, whose world is this? And we're back. The Multiverse. I'm Bad Ty Bricks here with Hallie Noon and Tyrone Thornhill. Looking beautiful as always, guys.
Thank you.
How was your weekend?
Thank you. It was good. It was good.
It was good. Anything exciting happen?
Let's see. Catching up on all the Netflix shows, things that are trending and trying to keep up with them for this
keep
show.
Up with the times and everything.
Yeah.
What about you, Tyrone? I think you got some pretty good news going on.
Yeah, I got a closing date for the sale of the house, and it's one step closer to my move up north. Yeah.
Oh man, we're gonna miss you, man. Once you're gone, man. I mean, dang, man, you're just going to New York and.
Well, I mean, they got internet up there. We'll be good. We'll still be doing, hanging out and playing Avengers and doing shows and stuff. So it's all good.
Yeah, we coming to visit, man. I'm just like right now, man. We couldn't wait for you to move to New York just so we have a reason to go take a field trip.
Well, you let me know. I'll tell you which park bench I'm living on.
Sounds like a plan, man. Hey, we got a great show this week, man. There's been a lot going on out here in the world. Some people are upset, some people aren't. But we're going to talk about all that today. But first and foremost, we have a special guest. Really excited to get this individual here. He's funny as hell, had a lot to say about these issues and the closer. So without further ado, I want to give a big round of applause. Minnie Grogu, what up, baby?
Yeah.
What's going on, family?
Yeah.
Spirit fingers on everybody. Thank you. I appreciate it. That's the best thing anybody says about me. Like you, I swear I need one of y'all to go everywhere with me, especially when I'm trying to get a loan so y'all can introduce me. So it just sounds good when y'all say it. Thank y'all for having me. I love you guys. You know that Miss Holly just met you today. Hey girl,
Hey.
we're but I love you guys. And I'm ready to talk this out and see what we can we can come up with. We're not gonna I don't think we're gonna please everyone, but I believe that we can come into some understanding.
Well, that's all we can ask, and that's what we're here for, just to have the conversation, man. But again, it's awesome to have you here. We appreciate you coming through to spend time with us to talk about this issue. But let's jump into it, man. Let's not waste any time. I don't know if you've seen it. I'm sure you have because it's been the talk of the town. But Dave Chappelle just had a special called The Closer that just came out. Let's first, have you seen it, Minnie?
Oh, yes, I have. Yes, I have. That's one of my goats. So, of course, I have to check it out and see what he's doing. Try to learn something real quick.
Yeah. Well, it's been controversial, as we always expect from Dave. He gives it to us blood raw, whether we like it or not. And that's one of the things I respect about him. But just let's jump into it, man. When you saw the special, Minnie, what jumped out to you? Right when you saw it, what was the first thing that jumped out to you?
I would say I'm used to him and I'm used to his candidness, but from the start, I could tell this was different. I could tell he told you so from the beginning. So I'm going all the way in. Like, this is it. I'm going in. You know what I mean? He told you he had no holds barred. He was going to be straight up how he felt with no filter. So that kind of caught me off guard because I've watched things before that he had win and like we would say he went ham, or he might have thought people might have thought he crossed the line or whatever, but he never gave you that preview from the beginning. Mm-hmm. So it's just you watched it and you were like, oh damn, he said that. But in this one, he's telling you, hey bro, like watch out because I'm about to say some shit. So that caught me off guard because I never seen him do that. I've seen him cross the line before, but I've never seen him warn you before he does. So I already knew it was gonna be some shit. I'm gonna like, okay, this is different. This is a different Dave, and him alluding to this is gonna be my last one. I'm gonna think, okay, he's gonna let every bullet off in the clip. Like he's not gonna sugarcoat nothing. He's not gonna try to change any viewpoint. He's just gonna let it all out. This is how I feel about it, and then so that's the first thing that I noticed right off the bat.
Okay, Holly, how about you? When you saw the closer, what was your first reaction?
I always look forward to Dave Chappelle's commentary, social commentary about things happening. So for me, I really enjoyed the special, and I think he just made some really valid points about what's happening in society related to cancel culture, the LGBTQ plus community, as well as just as it relates to Black culture in general. So I enjoyed it.
Okay. Tyrone, I've talked to you about this already, and I mean, you might have a little bit of a different perspective. What did you think about it when you first saw it? What was your reaction?
Yeah, I was disappointed by it. I've always considered Dave Chappelle to be one of the more creative thinkers, one of the more eloquent speakers, and somebody who's really funny above all. But it seemed kind of to Minnie's point. I know it was kind of a different way, but it did seem like he just kind of set out just for this to happen. Like he just set out to kind of set a fire and then just be like, all right, I'm out. You know what I mean? Like that sort of thing. And, anytime I've been at a show as a comedian, anytime I've been like at a show or on a show and I hear one of the comics, like I'm about to say some crazy stuff that's going to get people mad. I just roll my eyes. Cause I'm like, oh, here we go. This is when people just start saying dumb shit with no jokes and just start saying shit just to try to get groans from the audience or whatever. And, and then for a lot of the time in this special, that's kind of what he did. That's my very long first impression.
It's okay. now, Minnie, I want to address you and I'll come back to you, Tyrone, and then to you, Holly. Being a comedian, because you are a comedian, Minnie.
Yeah. Well, they
very funny, and a very funny comedian, might I say. But as a comedian, do you feel like there is a line that one does not cross as a comedian, or is that just like an invisible line in the sense that it's there, but a comedian doesn't recognize it if they're a true artiste. Because they know that they have the ability to talk about pretty much anything. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, this is the way I view it, and this is the way I've always viewed it. And let me start, because I get on my tangent. So let me start from point A. Point A, when it comes to America to begin with, is you have freedom of speech. You can say what you want. It's freedom of consequences that you don't have. Okay? So let's get that straight. You can literally say what you want. It's what happens once it comes out your mouth that you can't control. But we should never have someone telling you what you can say. You can say what the hell you want. It's what's going to happen. So I don't like anything that has to do with anybody censoring anyone, no matter what business you're in. If we're talking about censoring someone and the way you convey yourself and the way you're expressing how you feel about the world that you see. Now, if that is not congruent to what America is at the time, and people want to go ahead and berate and say that you did wrong, then that's a whole nother thing. But the thought that you couldn't say it to begin with, I don't like. Now, and that's with everything, not just comedy. Now, when it comes to comedy itself, I believe that comedians were the last breed of people who are allowed to say what they want to say. Once again, I'm not saying that that's what you're saying is right. I'm saying we're the last ones who are allowed to so far. Music used to be that way, not anymore. Music has too many rules, too many regulations. I used to be in the music industry. They'll come up to you and they'll listen to a song that you're saying that has black power this and black power that, and they won't want to put that on the record. But the song you got about X pills and hoes, they want to put that in #1 single. You see what I'm saying? Yes. So music that's not the way anymore when it comes to being the last breed of people who we'll say free thinkers and say what you're thinking. Once again, I'm not condoning people to think that because they have the right to say what they want to say, that you are correct in what you're saying. What I'm conveying myself that you have the right to say. So as a comedian, I think we're the last business or the last whatever profession that we're allowed to do that.
Okay. That's a fair assessment. Now, Tyrone, you also being a comedian and a very funny one as well. What exactly was it that kind of, caused you to feel like this was something you were disappointed in as a comedian?
Yeah. I think so. I also agree that there's nothing that we can't talk about. I think when you talk about subjects, especially when you're talking about a subject that involves communities who are who are marginalized and oppressed, and and oftentimes victims of violence and stuff like that, you should do so with a certain amount of respect, just as a person. And also, as a comic, I'm somebody who, while I do believe we should be talking about whatever we want, a comic's first job is to be funny. And if your first thought is to go out there and just start pointing at people and just being like, I don't like you, I don't like you, I don't believe you should exist, I don't, you know what I mean, that kind of thing, that's no longer comedy. That's just somebody going up and just saying hurtful and hateful things. So when you're, that's why I was always a fan of Dave Chappelle, because when he would talk about subjects that were tough subjects, he would do so in such a funny way, and in a way where, like, he was crafting his jokes where you're like, damn, not only is that joke really funny, but it's bulletproof. Like that, nobody can say anything about that joke, even though it's touching on a heavy subject, because he wrote it so well. And as a comic, and I think if we sit here and really think about the jokes that he claims to tell, which there were a few funny jokes, not very many, but a few funny jokes, but like talking about the actual jokes, if we sat here and just like boiled down what the statement is in a joke, a lot of it was just, trans man look funny, trans woman look funny, you know what I mean? LOL, the vagina looks weird, or, like that kind of thing. And that's just like, that's stuff you might hear at an open mic, mini knows, you know what I mean? Like it's real, it's just real basic stuff, stuff. And I just expect better from Chappelle. I think you should be able to talk about anything. But I think if you're going to talk about those heavy subjects, especially if you don't have the life experience or the experience in those communities, then, you should do so with a certain amount of respect.
So what you saw was an overwhelming perpetuation of hate coming from Dave's closer special. Because you did mention something in the lines of
hurtful and hateful,
people not existing. And I would love to hear you kind of elaborate on that.
Yeah, when he mentioned the turf thing, he talked about J.K. Rowling, and he mentioned the turf thing, turf being trans exclusionary radical feminism. That is somebody saying, and he explained it, that's somebody saying that trans women aren't women. And that's a conversation that is pretty much one of the biggest conversations in a way to marginalize that community, is to say, nah, you don't exist, and here's a bunch of biological or scientific reasons why, even though usually it's people speaking it with a very small grasp of biology and science and things. But it's people saying, hey, you're not a woman because you weren't born a woman. And we know that that's something that is often used to just dismiss and to marginalize that community. So when he just said that, and it was a declaration, it wasn't a joke. He just came out and he said, I believe this is what I believe. And, he's entitled to his beliefs, but to what that did, though, is you have a bunch of people who look to him as the greatest of all time, and as one of their heroes, and as the, a genius and one of the greatest minds. And he's saying something that is telling a community, I don't believe you. And what you're doing is you're legitimizing that train of thought and making it so people who live in that community, people who live that life experience, they have to deal with that. Like those are consequences that we don't have to deal with, but they do.
Okay, that's a good point, and we're definitely going to come back to that point. Holly, you also saw this this special. Do you also echo what Tyrone is saying as far as seeing it as a perpetuation of hatred towards a community? And also, as a woman, do you see any significance in what Dave said as far as trans women not being women? Effectively, since you're a woman, you can talk about that more than we can. So
Yeah, so how I observe, so I disagree with Tyrone. And so my thought is what I observed from Dave Chappelle, kind of what I observed from even when he had his show, is the way that he kind of has these social themes, whether they be about racism, white supremacy, and now he's kind of talking about the LGBTQ plus community. I just kind of just took it as him kind of walking through his thought process and understanding of like, why is it when we talk about a certain community, there's all this backlash in comparison. If you talk about Black people, it's not the same effort to, we'll say, cancel somebody. And so I just kind of felt like someone who's a social scientist and just understanding Dave's background, where his mom is a professor of African American studies, his dad is very known in the music community in terms of like opera. He comes from a very like cultured background. So what I heard through his comedy was just someone kind of like, these are observations that I've made. He's entitled to those observations. And I think he made funny, and some people find it offensive. But, you know, also I think like what's crazy is, while his show was back in the day, do you feel like since that was like a couple of decades ago, we're just more sensitive as a society now, so we take more offense to the things that he says easily? So that was also part of my thought process. In terms of trans women, I mean, they are free to identify how they feel. I can't dictate to that. I just understand that it's a very intersectional discussion when it comes to identity, in the discussion also around identity politics. So I just kind of feel like Dave's entitled to his thoughts, and as well as the women in the trans community are entitled to, you know, how they feel as well. So I see both sides. I guess that's kind of how I see it.
Okay. Now, Minnie, I have a question for you. Do you feel like when it comes to terms...
Before you get to that question, my bad, bro. Before you get, I just want to interject real quick, and I apologize. I love my man Tyrone, and he know I'm going right back at his ass. He know that because he loved me the same way. But this is my thing. He said some of the stuff wasn't funny, which I get. Comedy's subjective, bro. So that, you know what I'm saying, comment, it could be good. But there's a joke when you're talking about trans. I don't see it as plain as him saying that they don't exist. I see it as plain as him not agreeing with that thought process. He just doesn't agree with what they believe. He's not saying that these people don't exist, or they don't need to exist, or they're not valuable as people. He's just saying to him it's bonkers. And I'll say this: when he was talking about Caitlyn Jenner winning the Woman of the Year, if you don't tell me that joke ain't funny, that shit is hilarious. She won Woman of the Year without being a woman in less than a year, and he was like, "All you bitches in Detroit, she beat all y'all." That shit is fucking hilarious. Now, to me, when it comes to that, this is what I'm trying to say. What this is what he's trying to get at when it comes to that as well. If you remember, I'm a huge sports fan, and I think you are too, Tyrone. I know Ty is, but I think you are too, Tyrone. But I'm a huge sports fan. If you remember the year that she won, there was a college girl who had terminal cancer, beat it, came back, and got MVP in the championship, and she didn't get it.
Yeah.
That was my daughter, I would have went crazy in the stands. They would have had to kick me out. My daughter came back from cancer and won a championship, and she can't get Woman of the Year.
Yeah, and just so you know, you're not going to hear me over here caping for Caitlyn Jenner. Caitlyn Jenner is a terrible
person.
I'm
just saying.
Yeah, and not because she's trans, but because she's an awful person and should have never gotten the accolades that she got. And that's the thing is like, there's so much shit you could talk about Caitlyn Jenner that's not she had a sex change or she transitioned. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. Like that. It's the low-hanging fruit, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like facts. But it's the thought process that somebody still gave an award of a woman to a person who just became a woman in less than a year. You see what I'm saying? When we're talking about on paper, we're talking about as in we are indoctrinating her as womanhood. It was less than a year, bro. And they gave it to somebody. That thought process doesn't matter who it was. Caitlyn Jenner, Mike Jenner. It doesn't matter who it is. The name doesn't matter. That thought process is the problem.
But I would so go into that a little bit more, because I wonder. My thing is, I wonder why it is the problem. Like,
because they are real. When I say real, we're talking about opinions. So you can identify however you want. My opinion is that you can. My opinion. I started with my opinion is that you can identify however you want. Science doesn't change. You see what I'm saying? Even if you're gonna change sexes, you're still gonna take hormones to change that sex. Because biologically,
here's where I do. Yeah.
Because
so
biologically, you might not have, might not have the what it takes to be able to change that sex. To be able
what I want to do is I want to draw a line for me for the rest of the show. One thing that I won't do is argue whether somebody's identity is valid. Like I'm not arguing that.
Yeah.
Are you sure? Because that's what it kind of sounds like.
No. Your identity is you can identify however you want. Science and identity are not the same thing. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, and
I'm
this
talking
is
about if we're talking about, let's talk about wrestling. Let's use wrestling as a thing. I'm a huge wrestler. I won 3 championships in high school. Okay, so I know a little bit about wrestling. From sex change, from people who have been trans, there has been 0 men to woman trans that won anything, championships or any medals. There have been more than 10 the other way around. In other words, if my daughter goes and wants to wrestle and she gets beaten for the championship 3 years in a row by a trans man or by a trans woman, I see a problem with that. You see what I'm saying? And I'm not talking about I'm mad because they identify as a trans person. I don't give a fuck what they identify as. My problem is that they beat my child in a sport that has regulations for something.
So you're saying trans women shouldn't be allowed to play sports?
Not against actual females.
But just let's throwing this out there. There is science that indicates.
No, and I just said it again.
Yeah.
Not against females. You can put them in a man's sport. If you want to put a trans, if a dude in the NFL tomorrow comes out trans, yo, be that. Do that. Be the first trans woman to play in the NFL. Do your thing, boo-boo. You see what I'm saying? But I don't want him in the WNBA. Put him in the NBA.
Because genetically, he's different. He's like
the composition is different, bro. I'm not talking about identification.
Ultimately, I get what you're saying, Tyrone, as far as as invalidating or validating one's identity. What I'm saying is, and what I think Minnie is saying is, like, for instance, I can identify as an 80-year-old man, but that doesn't make.
Again, these are, but that's what I'm saying. That's why I wanted to make sure we didn't get into these weeds, because these arguments are all arguments that are used to dismiss and to marginalize that community. And so when we sit here and do that, what we're doing is we're saying, in context of this conversation, Dave Chapelle should be able to say this because these people aren't women. Trans women aren't women.
Is that what I'm saying?
I don't, if it's not like, because then we can talk about, that's what I'm saying. Like, we can talk about all of the other stuff around this conversation without removing somebody's identity from them, without saying that, okay, I get it, you can say what you want to say, but I don't believe you. Is like, we can talk about all the other stuff without going there.
Well,
but I believe them. I believe them.
Hold on 1 second, Minnie, because what I would like to kind of chime in on is, why does there have to be an either or? Why is it that in order for a trans woman to exist, you have to somehow be included in that of a woman? If a trans woman or a trans man exists, just like with most things that in history we have categorized, because, for instance, albino men and women are of Black descent, but they are categorized as albinos. Doesn't change the fact that they are still of Black descent. And do they sit there and complain and say, oh, don't label me an albino because I'm typically, and I'm actually historically or genetically of the black race? No, we categorize them as albinos and it was accepted. And now they live amongst us just like regular people because they are regular people. So as trans women and trans men, why can you not be identified as a trans woman, a trans man, and be in that group? So say, for instance, Caitlyn Jenner wins Trans Woman of the Year in her category, you still have a category for women. So you're not taking away from women who have already been, like Minnie was saying, there was that young lady who worked her ass off and then was kind of, like you're not supporting Caitlyn Jenner because she's not but she's a bad person. But what I'm saying is the agenda was to replace Caitlyn Jenner into the woman category for Woman of the Year, whereas she could have been Transgender Woman of the Year. And that's the agenda, where it's not, instead of it being either or, it can be inclusive. That's what inclusivity is adding on, not taking away and making a spot that was a spot into this spot for me. So like the only way that I feel that I'm being identified and respected as a trans woman is if you recognize me as women who have already been here. And that's why I'm saying, is there not a medium where we can agree to say we accept transgender women as women, we accept transgender men as men, but there's a category for transgender men, transgender women, so that they feel accepted and also acknowledged without people who are women and men feeling like their gender is being threatened and taken away.
I would ask, what's the threat to the gender? Because I think we should just stop at we accept trans women and we accept trans men, and then that just be that. But I don't think there's a threat to anybody's gender.
Well, no. If you're sitting here saying that we, like as a culture, are moving to the realm of gender fluidity, where gender is no longer a construct and we no longer recognize men or women, we just recognize people. I get where that would benefit certain groups. But for people who have been like dealing with this forever and have been taught this forever, to come in and say, okay, because we want to be included, what you used to believe is no longer no longer relevant. But now this is the way, because we're moved into a different time frame and this is what people are accepting of, then this is the way things should be and are be. Do you not see where the people who are already in their habitual state have, of learning these things from birth, are feeling like you're now taking away what my right as a man or a woman who I believe me to be, and telling me that.
But that's the thing. I struggle to see where anybody's taking anything from. Like, I don't think like, let's say a woman transitions into a man, that does not affect my gender at all. That doesn't affect me or my manhood or anything like that.
The example we just gave you was that Caitlyn Jenner won Woman of the Year. I mean, that's but
that's not that's the thing. Like, that's not a transgender problem. That's ESPN fucking up. You know what I mean? That's somebody making dumbass decisions for all the wrong reasons. You know what I mean? That's a completely different thing.
Yeah, but we have to be mindful. There is gender politics and identity politics flowing all through this. I think that's what we have to because we have to understand, I think, how the LGBTQ plus like community identifies. Maybe for those of us who are not a part of that community, we're still trying to figure out. I mean, I think there's like, we're all starting to figure out pronouns, like how do we like address people? I think there is identity. It's very intersectional. And I'm saying that to say, ultimately, I think this is why people feel like there's a divide, because I think it's like, well, we over here, if we want to say heterosexual, we are like, okay, this is how we are raised. This is what a man should be. This is what a woman should be. This is how they identify. She, her, hers, he, him, hims. You know what I mean? And then now what I feel like is the proposed threat is now we have to think differently to include
accommodate
the LGBT.
Accommodate.
Yeah, but right. That's how it seems like we have to accommodate. But really, I mean, what Dave Chappelle really said at the end was like, just have empathy, really to just listen and hear it. And because if I'm an open-minded person, I'm going to be like, okay, I didn't know those pronouns existed. I didn't know that's how you identified. I didn't recognize there were so many genders and that was a possibility. And I think what happens is because activism and things like that there's politics involved. And I think Caitlyn Jenner winning, I think that was more or less like politics in terms of like they were making a point to say they support a community that at the end of the day has a lot of white people involved in it, and white people have power and they can, make things happen, when at the end of the day in that community alone, they can be dismissive to Black trans women and what's happening to them and them being marginalized. So I think, I don't know, it's just very intersectional personally.
Ooh, can I interject?
Go ahead. You want to?
My bad. I know you had a question to ask me and I messed all that up. And Tyrone, listen, I don't want anybody to get misconstrued. Anyway, let me start from the beginning again. I'm Puerto Rican and I was raised in California. I really don't give a damn what anybody thinks of me. I swear to God. But just in case you want to go ahead and get some kind of about who I am, if you never heard me or say you're like, this guy's crazy, he's saying the craziest shit. I have a gay brother. I have a gay best friend who I knew he was gay before he knew he was gay. I have a cousin who's transsexual in the middle of changing sexes right now. They're all in my family. They all talk to me. You can find them in my friends list. You can find them commenting on everything I do. Love them. They love me back. So this is not me being hateful, have any hate in my heart about anything or anything like that. I'm just giving you my opinion. And these conversations I've had with some of them. I've had conversations about my daughter, and the same conversation we just had about sports. I had it with my trans cousin. I had it with my gay brother. How do they feel? Hey, how you feel about this? How you feel about that? Because like I was saying, that's the only thing. I don't believe the whole taking away thing is hard for me to swallow, because that's how things start that get crazy. Because KKK thought that the whiteness was being taken away, so then the KKK started. You see what I'm saying? So that's a slippery slope.
I want to
that's a slippery slope.
But before we go comparing the KKK to the LGBTQ community,
no. I'm not doing that. Listen to what I'm saying. I'm saying
I'm very much listening to what you're saying, but I see
the people who are against it.
Well, here again, because when we start to go, when we start to do it starts here and goes to another place. Like where is this at? Like what do we lose by just saying
what I'm saying?
Like, if your cousin, for example, were to come to me and say, I don't know, is your cousin transitioning from male to female?
Male to female, yeah, male to female.
Okay, so if your cousin comes up to me and says,
"What up, Zoe?
Hi, my name is this," I'm, and says, "I'm a woman," I'm like, yeah. Like, what's the problem with that?
That's what I'm saying. Okay, so let me break it down, because I might have went too fast. I'm not talking about the people who are pro. I'm specifically talking about the people who are against it. People who I hear say, and I'm not saying my boy Ty, because Ty is saying it in a different way, but I've heard it said in a very malicious way. When people are saying, "Oh, this is taken away from me. I'm getting things taken away from me."
Okay, I misunderstood you.
Exactly. When you say, "I know, baby, I know," it's good. When you say things like that, it can lead to something really, really bad. Because, oh, our jobs were taken away. We don't want immigrants in here. You see what I'm saying? That thought process can lead to some really ugly shit. But this is what I'm saying when it comes to things taken away. And I get your point, Tyrone. I get it 100%. The only time I ever see that being a problem, the word taken away, is like I alluded to beforehand when it comes to things like sports. Other than that, I don't see in any type, shape, or way or form that someone being an LGBTQ or being someone that identifies as something else takes away anything from me. Other than that, because I do have a daughter. I have a lot of horses in this race. I do have a daughter, and I do have a daughter that asks questions. And as early as 9 years old, she's already having kids around her who have those conversations, believe it or not. So she has to come home and get some kind of balance and some kind of base from me. Mm-hmm. And this is what I'm giving you. I'm giving you the same base I'm giving her. I'm not saying they're not allowed or they shouldn't or anything like that. But that's the only time I see where there might be a problem when that word taken away could be used, because you are taken away from the people in that sport that already were in that sport, that already might have been winning championships or whatever it was when you added this thing, this other person. You see what I'm saying? So that's the only taken away. Now, other than that, I don't like that language too much because, like I said, it leads to ugliness. It really does lead to ugliness.
Can I say this? Like, because I mean, and I don't want to get too far off the subject of the show, the closer, and what his comments, and how it affects the community. But I think we've gotten to a point in our society where you can have an opinion, but as long as it's not as long as it doesn't make me uncomfortable, then your opinion is one of those. And I feel like that, like, I want to be very careful, but at the same time, I don't, because I feel like, you know, having your opinion, you should be able to voice your opinion freely. But when you voice your opinion freely on this subject, the attack and the defense mode, because Tyrone, to be honest, you're in very defense mode. You're in extreme defense mode. I've never seen you in this much of a defense mode. But it's okay. I understand that you have this, you feel very strongly about this. But this is why when you try to have these conversations with this community, it always leads to that. It always comes back to, oh, you know, like if you have an opinion on something that you grew up with, which is typically okay, unless you're talking about sexuality and gender and stuff like that. As soon as you start talking about gender and sexuality, then it's like, oh, well, you're hating against the you know, or you don't like this, or whatever the case may be, because I hear this a lot. And one of the things that I really think we need to be conscious of is the fact that gender was created for a reason. Like, the fact of the matter is, I'm not saying that a person who identifies as a woman or a man cannot be is not a human being and not entitled to identify however they want to be. Like, I hate to do this, but I'm doing the same thing that everybody does when you feel like you have to prove that you're not against the community. You know, I have family members that are gay. I have very close family members. I'm not going to say who, because I don't know if they want me to say it. So but I do have people very close to me that are part of the LGBT community. You know, we were supposed to have a guest. She didn't show up today. And it's okay. But like, you know, when I talk to people, I talk to them with the level of respect that they give. So it doesn't matter what you are, what you represent, what your sexuality is, who you choose to sleep with. None of that ever comes into play. And you know me, Tyrone. I'm one to listen and have that dialogue and try to understand different perspectives. Wow, boy, my voice is so powerful. You talk and they just appear, and she's here. She's here. I've been waiting for you, girl. You don't know I've been waiting for you, man. So you here. You're here.
Yeah, I'm here. Unfortunately, it took me a little bit longer.
Welcome Monique to the show. Monique, it is so good to have you here, because you are a part of the LGBT community. You are a transgender woman. You did see the closer, and I want to give you an opportunity as a transgender woman to let me know, how did the closer special make you feel after you saw it?
Well, first off, I just want to introduce myself and say hi, everybody. I do apologize for being late. Hey. But you know, when you're the star, sometimes you have to do, you know, your little late thing. Okay. But first, I want to say thank you for allowing me to have this opportunity to actually speak and voice my personal opinion on this platform. I've checked out some of you guys' shows or whatever. I think it's amazing, and I think this is a great new beginning for new understanding and opportunity. So, to start off with your question about the closer, personally, I've never been like a real major big fan of Dave Chappelle. Mm-hmm. I kind of liked his last scene to me that I've seen him in was with Nutty Professor when he was in that. I thought he was funny there.
Wow, that's a throwback.
Yeah, which is really, really old. So yes. I thought he was funny in that. I kind of found him funny. I think he did appear on some Comic Views episodes. Not too sure which ones, but I think he did. And like up to date, like I never really like followed his complete comedy career. Mm-hmm. But some of the scenes of little clips, you know, relating to like racial comments or, you know, picking on the Black people or making fun of us, you know, just to find some kind of even playing field amongst our community, you know, I thought it was funny. Now, when it comes to the actual recent thing, which is the closer episode, I didn't take offense to it because, for one, I think a lot of things that he was explaining in the actual segment wasn't preferably offensive to me because of stipulations or, you know, as we talk more, you know, just to get into detail, I just think some of the stuff wasn't that heavy. Now, do I think the community as a whole might be over exaggerating the situation? Yes, I really do. Dave Chappelle comedy to me is kind of dry, funny, and it's sarcastic, but it's really pretty much like if you're not educated, or if you're not let's not say educated, if you don't think outside of the box, or if you don't read black and white, sometimes you may not catch his jokes. But for those who do, it's funny. And I don't necessarily think that he was just targeting the community LGBT. I think he was kind of hitting everybody up under the table. He went from politicians to, celebrities to other comics, just around the table, just pretty much everybody.
Okay. So I mean that's coming from someone that is actually in the community and also is a transgender woman. So at the end of the day, I wanted to wait for you to get here because I had this video that I came across, and I wanted to play this video and let us kind of do a Q&A over certain parts of it. So we are here for time. So
I appreciated some of what David said, which I think was provoked by the conversation here, because what he was talking about previously that I first saw was a part of what we're talking about as cancel culture, and for Netflix to cancel David Chappelle's The Closer. And I finally saw it. I mean, when I first heard about this controversy, I hadn't seen it yet. I finally saw it this morning, and my perspective after I saw it was definitely I don't support the show being canceled. One of the things that was said in your conversation with David is about the importance of us having conversations, and I've been saying that for a while, that we need to be having Black acculturated and informed conversations about these issues. I think the reason that David Chappelle talked about LGBTQ and queer and all that as white, because white people are its foundation, white culture is how it's rolled out, and the people that lead it in this country that have the most power are particularly whites. Black people are marginalized by that community, and one of the things that David Chappelle talked about in one of his previous stand-ups was that reality. But what I want to focus on here is that I care about everybody, Black. I care about Black trans people and what's been happening among trans Black people. That 21 that was identified as murder. I care about the 9,013 Black people who were murdered at large, 8,469 Black men, 1,440 Black women, and the 21 trans people that we know about who have been murdered. They all matter to me. But what's being ignored, and frankly, I think the gay paradigm encourages the ignoring of Black contextual historical issues, is that David, regardless of his millions and et cetera, is someone who cares about Black people and Black life. And one of the things that he said at the very ending of his program was empathy should go both ways in terms of Black people and the LGBTQ white-led community, and toward Black people. There should be empathy both ways, and historically there has not been. And that community has been known to be marginalizing of Black issues, Black concerns, and it encourages Black people to go along with its agenda and its perspective instead of addressing contextual and cultural issues. And that's what comedian David Chappelle is trying to do. And I emphasize that he's...
All right, I'm going to pause it right there. Just so, because I've kind of rushed because we're now pressed for time. But this is Dr. Cleo Manago. He's an African-American professor of social sciences and things of that nature. But this is one of those things that I wanted to ask you, and particularly Monique. Do you feel as a Black transgender woman in the LGBTQ plus community that you experience racism through and within that community from white contemporaries that are also transgender or just gay and lesbian or queer in the community? Is there truth to this?
Well, yeah, there is truth to it, and I do believe that there is a little bit more detailed information that is always left out when it refers to trans women. To be honest, being a Black trans woman is almost like being a Black man in America, technically. So it's kind of like we're still at the bottom of the totem pole. So even amongst our own Black LGBT community, there are some Black gay males who don't relate to Black trans, or don't get along with Black trans, or don't agree with our lifestyle or how we maneuver or the things that we do. And when it refers to just being marginalized as a whole, I think that we're considered Black regardless. When you look at me, when you see my skin texture, my complexion, even before I open my mouth, I'm already labeled as a Black individual. So first, I'm labeled as Black angry woman if I complain or if I make a issue about something that's not being correctly done to me or treated to me. And then I'm also labeled as a Black individual as whole just because of my race. So I think that I experience both of it, both circumstances, all of them. So it's pretty much, like I said, previously before we had the session today and we spoke yesterday, I think that Dave Chappelle's message was centered around just basically letting white people know that they need to get up off our backs as a whole community. I think the LGBT community is being pushed by fully white people. I think the agenda that they have is to push rights for them, not necessarily me, because at the end of the day, it's kind of like, even if I go to a regular restaurant or arena, when they see me, they're going to see Black first. So they're not going to think, oh, you're trans or this and all of that, and then try to dissect it like that. But once they find out, that's more drama to add on top of to that. So I think it's, it's just is what it is.
And I asked the panel a question before you got here. Does it have to be an either or? Like as a trans woman, would you be comfortable in a space of being recognized as a trans woman, or do you have to be recognized as a woman in order to feel complete as a trans woman?
Well, I mean, to be honest, it makes more sense that if I am aspiring to be a woman image, you look at me, I expect for you to treat me as what you see. If you see me on here today and you see a woman, my mannerisms, my tone, my character, my traits, then respect me as such. My name is Monique, so that's what you call me. You don't see anything else. Now, if I'm coming on here acting like Jay-Z, Rick Ross, Steve Harvey, then call me, hey, bro, have a seat or chill out. That's how I'm expecting for you to address the situation. And I think that as a race of people, what we have to understand is that acceptance is the key for us to move forward, whether it be gay, lesbian, straight, dog, cat, woman, worm, fish, whatever. Acceptance is the key for us. And that is the one thing I think that we lack and we don't understand. Just to understand that people are different. If we were all the same, then nothing would ever work. It's kind of like having a big puzzle. And amongst the puzzle, this particular puzzle just happens to have color, brown, cream, black, whatever. And this particular puzzle is all white. Now, if we were all the same color, you wouldn't know where to fit things at. But because we are different, you can say, hey, this brown piece goes right here, this red piece goes right here, this blue piece goes right here. So I'm saying that to say that working together is the key essential goal. Whether or not you agree with my personal lifestyle when it pertains to me having sex, which is something that is none of your business, doesn't matter. Now, if my mannerisms are a little over the top for you, there's a nice way for you to say, hey, this is kind of offensive to me. I don't want to blatantly just blurt it out and disrespect you, but I'm asking you in a respectful way, is there some kind of way you can maintain that? And I think that would conceal a lot of the negative vibes or connotations that they have on us as Black trans.
Well, let me ask you, because I'm so glad to have you here, and I can't stop asking you enough questions. But I have another question, and this pertains to sports. Now, as a trans woman, if you were to be put into a sport with women that were born women, do you feel like you might have an advantage over them because you're a trans woman? And I mean, because you may look like a woman, but you probably play better than some women. If that's the case, it's possible.
Well, it's kind of 50-50 for me because even though I was in the marching band, I've been in the marching band since I was in the 5th grade. So I kind of consider that a sport as well because it's still, athleticism being applied, working out or whatever. So the reason why I say it's 50-50 is because in the band arena, it's kind of pretty much everybody is one band, one sound. So it's like you're all treated the same. You're all, you know, required to perform the same athleticism, the same type of, you know, style of marching, technique, playing, working, or whatever. You're all treated as one. You're just considered an instrument. Now, when it comes to the actual sports, such as like maybe basketball or running track or anything, the technicalities of that is kind of controversial, because if you are a quote unquote proper trans, and what I mean by proper trans, meaning that you're completely transitioning from either male to female or female to male, you either are taking testosterone blockers and premium del estrogen, which is supporting your estradiol rates or estrogen rates, which is making you more feminine for male to female, and for female to male, you're taking testosterone. So you're producing the mannerisms of what testosterone produces, what it does. So therefore, if you're taking those meds or pills or whatever, and you're functioning in those daily rights, then of course you should be able to function and do those daily things. So if you see me as a woman and I'm taking, you know, whatever to make me that, then it shouldn't be a problem for me to compete in that arena. Now, given the fact that people lie, you know, people say that they're doing something and doing this, I think that where it comes in is that you might just have to do a more detailed observation or physical when you're applying for a position or you're trying to compete in an arena. I think that would be fair, you know, because it's kind of like hard to say, well, hey, you know, he's fat, so just because he's fat, I don't want him to play basketball or whatever. But if he actually has the physical capability of competing with those people, then you should allow him to do that.
Okay.
Does it make sense? Or
it absolutely makes sense. I mean, and that's why we brought you here to bring you know some understanding to this conversation, because a lot of times when you have these type of conversations, people are, you know, very defensive or offended, or, you know, feel as though they have to protect what it is they believe. And I get it, but at the same time, when you're trying to have a conversation, the only way that you actually come to a resolution is if both parties are actually listening and really want to have a resolution. Otherwise, you're just going to have one person talking and the other person not listening, and then effectively saying what they want to say, and you know, things like that. And that's why I think we haven't reached that point in society where we've had that understanding. We're just like, as soon as you challenge what we believe, we attack, and we're ready to cancel you and hush you up. And that's what we've seen with this Dave Chappelle closer situation. Is as soon as he made the comments, the reaction was, let's shut him down, rather than understand him. And like you did, because you thought outside the box, and you saw that he was saying there was a different message than just perpetuation of hate. And that's what some people see. They just see, oh, well, he's talking about, you know, impossible and beyond meat and all of this kind of stuff and everything. That's all you heard. That was all, because you zeroed in on that. So that's all you heard. But I heard a lot of other things that kind of, you know, were speaking for us and not against anyone. Just saying like, look, we need to uplift us and get us right. And before we can effectively change anything anywhere else.
What I kind of think, not to interrupt you, but what I kind of think that plays a part into is, earlier I was just trying to come up with the proper way to say it. Like, I don't consider myself pro-trans or pro-LGBT community, because I didn't have the LGBT community to help me identify with who I was. It was kind of like I already knew, you know, what I wanted to do, how I wanted to be, because I was raised by a single Black woman. So with me seeing the vision of a single Black woman paying bills, going to work, providing a household, taking care of not only her mom, but her child at the same time, being the breadwinner, being the provider, being the motivator, being the quote unquote Black traditional Christian church going woman, that is the image that I saw. Yeah, it was sad, and yeah, my dad missed out, you know, even though he's deceased and he wasn't able to be a part of my life. But I think that was the role that I wanted to take on, because that's what I saw that was empowering. It had nothing to do with, oh, I'm born this way and it's going to be a big issue because I'm changing, because I didn't think that way. I just thought that, oh, this is the positive image that I saw. Oh, I want to be like my mom. She a strong Black woman. Let me be like her. Not understanding the backlash that was going to come with that. And even though there was an internal feeling that I automatically had before I was even able to relate to that, it's still kind of like an undescribable moment. And what I think as a community, we have to understand is we can't always want to be inclusive or inclusively included and want to be excluded at the same time. And what I mean by saying that is we want to be accepted by every heterosexual person there is in the community. We want people to say, oh, okay, it's okay for you to stand here looking like Rick Ross with a high heel on, dressed like Beyonce, and stand next to, T.I., and for him to say, hey, this is a beautiful woman. But then as soon as you do something that's not becoming of what a beautiful woman does, or what a woman does as a role, or what a man does as a role, then it's, hey, you can't put the jokes on me. You can't say this. You can't do this. Yeah, this is against the LGBT community. It shouldn't be that way. You should present yourself the way you want to be treated. And again, that is something that we lack as a Black community whole. We don't understand. We don't communicate. We don't talk about it. And I don't understand why it's so controversial amongst us when everybody has someone that is either gay, soon to be gay, or considered to be quote unquote questionable in their family. So it's like, do you want to treat your same family member like this? Or would you be okay if somebody else was in the street doing this to them? And the same thing goes for the family member that might be in question. Would you be okay, if somebody else's family member was acting out of the box or wasn't portraying the actual image that they're giving off? So I kind of think it's double standards, and we just have to come together and figure it out as a whole.
Okay. I want to go ahead and play this, and then I'll open the floor for other questions from the panel and answers from the panel.
Comedian, because he's not a social scientist. He's not a behavioral health scientist. He's not a history major. He doesn't know the facts about the human story here. He probably does not know the issue of gender and gender nuance from an African perspective, because that's not his background. So he's an American citizen who's talking about what he sees. And what he sees, which is, because he's not blind, is an LGBTQ community that's white-led and practices racism. For example, and there's tons of them, in California, when Ed Buck did what he did, the white gay community knew about it because it had been reported, and they didn't come up in arms against the murder of Black men at Ed Buck's home. And I got tons of examples of that community not being supportive of Black people. But I want to get back to some issues that David raised so people won't get confused, because David said over and over again that Black people are queer, Black people are trans, Black people, etc. This is a diverse community. I have a relatively large following online as well, and there are lots of trans, same gender loving, etc. people who support David Chappelle's perspective, who doesn't have the perspective of the National Black Justice Coalition. Some of them look at this through the lens of being Black. And what I mean, again, by that is David Chappelle is an advocate for the defense and empowerment and justice for Black people. And I believe that includes Black men, women, and everybody else. And as a result of us not considering that and looking at this simply from a gay defensive lens, we're not even looking at the fact that if you look at his special from the whole context, he had a very endearing and loving story about a trans friend of his. And that's not being talked about among the people who are critiquing him. And the very few times it is referenced is poo-pooed, because frankly, there's a tendency in this society to poo-poo what Black men say, whether they're millionaires or not, because this is an anti-Black society that does attack Black men. I'll finish this tangent with this because I hope to respond to questions. One of the things that clearly concerns David Chappelle is Black manhood. And one of the things that I want to talk about at some point is the underpinning of why there's anxiety. I mean, he did a lot of bashing, if you will, around masculine traits of some trans people and made fun of it, which I found disturbing. And I understand contextually why people who are struggling, because transgender people struggle. Transgender people are bullied. Transgender people, well as all kinds of other Black people, frankly, at larger numbers, are murdered and killed. But focusing on this issue, there are situations that lead to the death of trans people, and there's teasing and bullying and a misunderstanding or judgment around being too male, too female. All this stuff is actually occurring. But canceling the likes of David Chappelle cancels the opportunity to have a conversation about some of the things that's really causing Black people, including David Chappelle, anxiety along these lines. We're concerned about the emasculation of Black men. We're concerned about if what all black men have gone through historically has led to gender confusion. I'm not saying that is my perspective. My perspective is nuanced, and I don't want to get into that now unless it comes out of some questions. But there's some, he's known, David Chappelle is known for being one of the comedians who was given a whole lot of money to put on a dress, and he said no. And instead of engaging meaningfully from a black perspective why he said no, and what he was worried about, he was simply called femophobic, homophobic, transphobic. And that's what the LGBT community does. Even when black people take on that paradigm, we don't engage black anxiety and perspective around these issues to be educated about what's really going on.
All right, I'm gonna stop it right there because that's a major point. Manny, I'm gonna shoot that to you because you've been pretty staunch on that topic. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just listening.
Okay.
Because honestly, that's the part that like none of this stuff affected me because I could compartmentalize and see where he was going with, and the responses of people don't surprise me. I've been in this earth for a long time and met enough people and been around diverse people to understand sometimes how people think. So a lot of the responses that the show got, whether I agree with the response or not, I could understand where they're getting it from. I can understand what life experiences might got them there. The one thing that made me mad to this day, and I don't understand, is how no one is putting the light to the fact of that young lady that was friends with him and committed suicide. I don't understand how that's not a talking point when suicide is such a big thing in every community and bullying is such a big thing in every community. And if we all, whether you're les and whoever you are, if we're all in agreement that bullying is wrong and everyone should have the right to be who they are and be happy and loved because of that, then why is that not being spoken about? I feel like the reason why it's not being spoken about is because sometimes that community doesn't like to accept when they're wrong or like to accept when they have problems within the community. So to talk about it, it will be accepting the fact that there's a lot of bullying in that community. And as I said beforehand, Monique, you haven't met you yet. My name's Roberto. They call me Minnie. How you doing, girl? You look beautiful, by the way.
Thanks.
But as I said beforehand, I do have a gay brother. I do have a trans cousin, and I do have a best friend who's gay. I have seen this bullying myself.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about this. My best friend came out when we was in middle school, bro. I'm 35. So I viewed this thing within each other that I never understood, because if it's all inclusive, it's all about everybody being one and everybody being loved. Why are we not dealing with this that I believe is hurting a lot of trans and gay men, women, or such whatever? I feel like this is a really pressing thing. I feel there's a lot of people going home depressed over conversations they have with their own people. We should never be the case.
If I may, I want to jump in. Yeah, I think one thing that we all need to keep in the back of our minds is that being an asshole knows no color bounds or no sexuality or anything like that. You can be an asshole in any form. So like we should, and one of the things that gets me about this doctor is he very quickly understands that racism is a problem for the white gay community, right? And he uses the white gay community as kind of like the reason why this is an issue. Racism is a problem for the white community, period. And some gay people are white, some trans people are white. Like that's a thing. Racism is a white problem. You know what I mean? And that's one of my biggest things is we need to make sure that we're recognizing that a lot of these examples of bigotry and racism and stuff, it comes directly down from white folks and white supremacy. And this kind of infighting, these kinds of discussions, while they're good to have for us because it's, it helps us to learn, it helps us to grow, that kind of thing. Any animosity should not be pointed across the table at the people having the conversation. It needs to be pointed to the people who are causing the issues. And I think that's one of my biggest sticking points is that when we make these examples of racism into a white gay problem, I don't think the LGBTQ part of this equation is the problem when it comes to racism. It's the white part that's the problem when it comes to racism. And of course, there's nuance. We all know that everybody can be racist in some way and all that other stuff. But when it comes down to white supremacy is the main issue here, and I think that needs to be remembered when people are starting to look at communities to blame, because he seems to forget that like the root of racism is coming from a single source.
I don't think he forgot at all. I think he's just alluding to it because they're having the conversation about it. So when you're having the conversation when you're actually talking about the context of this of the show and how the LGBTQ plus community reacted, I think that's what he's talking about. He's talking about the agenda and that it's not Black trans. It's not a Black issue when it comes to the agenda that's being the gay paradigm, and it's something that's being perpetuated by these same racists that you're referring to. Because let's be very clear. Black people make up 14% of the population in America. And white people make up 40% of the population in America. So at the end of the day, Black people as a whole, which is something that Dave spoke on at the beginning of the show, he had an admiration for the LGBT community and how organized they were and the ability to affect change immediately like that. That's what he was saying. He's like, well, why is it that us as Black people have not been able to have this same level of success? And the reasoning is because the people that are orchestrating these or pulling the strings, behind the door are not us. They are the majority. And so that's why they effectively can get a person like the baby canceled or try to cancel Dave. But I think in his defense and in Dave's situation, the only thing that really protected Dave was the fact that he's a comic. I really think that's the only thing that protected him.
I mean, Netflix is like, no, we're not canceling nothing.
Yeah,
what protected him is money. And
they already cut the check.
Yeah, the money, like they are. He makes the money, so like, why would they get rid of that? So it's like unless we want to get into like the cancel culture portion of it,
will. We're about to.
Because Dave Chappelle made 5 specials about being canceled and made millions of dollars. That's not what canceled looks like. You know what I mean? And so and Netflix is like, nah, we're not pulling shit. So this idea that Dave Chappelle's like this, this constant like underdog against cancel culture is just fake. I mean, it gets people riled up, but it's just fake.
Well, you kind of let us segue into the next topic, which is cancel culture real, and what can we learn from it? And Minnie, I saw your hand go up. Go ahead and shoot, man.
Oh, I know. I'm sorry. I'm gonna throw you back to what we just talked about, but I wanted just one thing from Monique real quick, because now that I have a chance to speak to someone within the community, it gives me a better clarity. Mm-hmm. Monique, I know you have been in the community for a long time, and you've seen the things that I'm talking about when it comes to within the community, infighting or bullying or making fun of each other, maybe that's he's fammed out or she fammed out or whatever. You hear those terms from within the community, and I know you're laughing because you heard them, right? Like right. I'm not making this up. I hear it all the time. How can we? Because even in a joking manner, when it happens a lot, it still carries a negative connotation to it. How can we move forward, not only from the outside of the community, but within the community, to get these words out and this kind of thought process of bullying within each other out? Because I think once people understand that they can be accepted within their own community, it's going to be easier for them to be allowed to be accepted by everybody else. Because it's hard for someone who gets bullied by the outside community and then goes to a bar or whatever and hears it from their own community. Now who loves me? You see what I'm saying? Now you get those. And how can we move forward with that? Because I think that's a conversation that we're not having. And it honestly pisses me off, because I've had homeboys, have people, and we're not talking about any gay situation or queer situation, but who have taken their lives over felt some type of way, feeling like the world don't love you. So how can a community who feels like the world don't love them not understand how deep it is for you to get that shit out of there?
Okay, so this is probably gonna take a couple of seconds. So with identifying the problem amongst the community, this is the best way I can explain it. When you become, how can I say? Well, I guess when you're a gay male and you decide to say, hey, I'm gay or I'm attracted to men or that's what I want to do, that is a sexual desire or feeling that you, or urge that you develop. And you start to act on it. And this is only from experiences that I've heard from friends or just observing, because I never acted in a mindset of I'm a gay male, let me be attracted or interact with other gay males. I felt as a girl. I felt as a woman. So the things that gay Black guys do when they are attracted to other gay Black guys or they start to come out the closet was something totally different for me. So I think that's where the first problem starts, because once they come out, they feel like, oh, okay, well, yeah, you accept me now, I can be with him or whatever. And then when they turn around and they see another person, in my case, where we're experiencing the same sexual desires, but is relatively resembles the life of a straight woman living a straight heterosexual life. So I'm attracted to straight men. So I'm looking at things from a straight natural woman's perspective. I'm not looking at it like, oh, I'm attracted to this gay guy and I want to be with him and all of this other kind of stuff. Because to me, that's taboo. That's like, oh, he's weak to me. I want a strong Black man, just like a regular Black woman wants, which is what I feel and how I operate. So amongst the community, that is kind of frowned upon, because the gay Black man also wants to be respected and treated just as well as the same way as the trans woman. And it might sound confusing, but it happens all the time. Prime example, not to dish him or bash him, you have a lot of people like Saucy Santana. You see a man when you look at him automatically just because of what you're viewing, but he wants to relate with the same treatment as a girl of my choice who takes hormones, who has breast augmentation or whatever, or has the outer appearance of a woman. So naturally, when a man sees me, he's going to treat me as such as he would a woman. When they see him, they're not going to treat him the same. So the confusion comes into where people such as that nature or that image wants to have the same treatment as somebody who looks completely different. And amongst our community, I hate that we acknowledge the fact of you being, oh, you're passable or you're pretty or you're real based off of because a guy was speaking to you or because he wanted to have with you or because he thought you were sexy and stuff, instead of just saying this is who you are. You know what I'm saying? And it causes a problem amongst us because everybody still have personal issues before they decide to convert over to being gay, lesbian, or whatever. So they still got mental issue problems that they had before they chose to come over here. So all they're doing is just adding extra stuff on top of that. So it's kind of hard to fix an issue when you already had an issue, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like you have to start back at that individual's their own expense of their own life and say, hey, what is it that you're experiencing mentally or physically that has you in the spot that you're in that's causing for you to be accepted amongst the people that you really feel like you want to be around, but you're not being able to express yourself because of that, if that makes sense.
Girl, you on fire. You on fire right now. You on fire.
I hear the word.
You on fire.
And it's always controversial for me because, again, a lot of people in the community, they don't feel that way. They just think, oh, I am what I am. I was Michael Jordan yesterday. Now I want to be Beyonce today. And you got to respect me like that. No, it ain't like that. It takes a process. It takes time. And I have to explain, like I explained to one of my girlfriends, we always have a combative conversation about, relating to cisgender women, natural women, and, arguing over men or arguing over if their dude wants to deal with a trans or interaction or however. But what it is that it's just like saying, if you've been the double Dutch queen for 30 years and then somebody else comes on your turf or they want to be a part of your team, you got to work your way in there. You can't just come in and knocking down doors saying, oh, this is what you got to do. I'm a part of this. You're going to respect me. And that's kind of how it is with women. Like, there are some natural born women that are just not going to agree with our lifestyle because they are either jealous or intimidated because we may physically look better. We may value a little bit more things. We may putting on makeup every day, or when we go somewhere, we may take the beautification process of ourselves a little bit more serious than others. But that doesn't mean that we don't experience the same backlash of body shaming, or, you know, having personal hygiene problems, or having, you know, presentation problems, or dressing, or anything that a natural woman does. It's just, there's a void that needs to be filled, and it needs to be talked about.
Now, Monique, because you just brought up a really good point, and one of the things that I think Dave was talking about on the show as well, that I think a lot of people missed, was the fact that he initially was talking about the feminist movement and the Me Too movement, and how women have been fighting for equal rights for so long. Now, when you look at it from that perspective, and you realize that women have been fighting for so long to be recognized as equals to men, and then finally when you start feeling like you're getting to that point, and then all of a sudden, like you said, here comes the competition. Like it's like okay, we finally, because I don't think anybody's ever touched on this, that this may be the reason why women resent trans women, is because they have been fighting for so long to get that equal right, equal stance and the equality to men. And then when they finally feel like they're around in the corner, here come trans women like, hold up, y'all ain't the only women on the block. We women too. And now, and you know what I'm saying? And I think when you step back and just take a look, you can understand why there would be resentment. Because if I was working, 30 years to be the boss, and then this young, up and coming dude who ain't had no experience comes in and takes the job that I always wanted, then I'm going to be like, yo, what the, you know what I'm saying? And I think that almost seems like it relates to the same thing that women may feel when it comes to trans women. Is that something that maybe you think could be the cause of the resentment from women?
I think that is with women. How can I put it? Okay, so the women image as a whole has an issue amongst each other when it comes to another beautiful woman. Like most of the time, pretty women, a lot of pretty women don't like other pretty women. And it's hard to understand why, because you feel as though when you're an African-American woman, you're strong, you're educated, you're beautiful, you got your head on straight, you feel like you're running the world, nobody can top you. That should be enough to keep your confidence level at an all high. But because of social media, because of some Black men who idolize being a body woman, or stripper body fish, or, having this type of lifestyle as an image to go for, it causes a problem amongst women. Now, when it relates to trans women, I just personally feel that regular women who are that are naturally born women shouldn't have a problem with us, because they have the real deal. So say what men want. And if you're secure amongst yourself and you know who you are and you have your own personal identity, then there shouldn't be any competition or anything to feel about, fear. I mean, men are going to be men. No disrespect to the other three men that's on here, but, men are going to be men regardless. And I hate to say it, men will interact with a dog. If you let them, if they, if a woman tell them,
nobody's looking, nobody's looking.
I was the ass on the dog though.
Yeah,
the dog got a fat ass. So I take it.
So I think that the conversation that needs to be had is that if you are representing the womanly image, there should be a standard level, regardless of if you're trans, regular woman, cis woman, do woman, don't woman, that we should uphold to set the standards so that men can understand, hey, look, if I want a woman, whether she's a man, boy, girl, he, she, dog, up, down, in and out, these are the standards and the qualifications that I have to meet or try to meet in order to get that. And I think that we have to do, again, this starts at home. The only difference between us and white people is that they communicate with theirs. We don't. But the crazy part about it is we've always had somebody like that in our family. Growing up, it was Uncle Sissy Tony, or Day down the street that, used to dance on the corner, or whatever was in the community, or however you saw them coming up. They were different at different times. But there's always been somebody there, and you've always known that they were different. You were taught and raised in the Black community that was your cousin, that was your sister, that was your brother. You don't treat them no different. And I hate that they idolize trans as this big negative connotation when you've been seeing tomboy girls all your life. You've been having a sister that don't want to wear a dress to Sunday church and want to wear tennis shoes and want to go outside and play basketball. And it's kind of like, oh, well, that's daddy's girl. But when you have Jonathan who sees mom in the kitchen cooking or wants to wear stockings like her or whatever, you make fun of it instead of trying to help them understand what it is they're feeling and how to go about it the right way. And going about it the right way is for one of them letting them know that, hey, you're stepping into a lane or a zone or arena that everybody's not going to be okay with. Everybody's not going to accept. But if this is what you feel on the inside, then I'm willing to support you for that. I'm willing to help you through that. I'm willing to help you find out how to maneuver amongst that. And you have to also understand that this is a life-changing decision that you're going to make, but you have to be ready for it.
Now, Holly, because I brought that issue up and that topic up, does that seem like something that because this is not the reason I brought it up is because I've heard this from women. I've heard this argument that trans women are taking our men. You know what I'm saying? It's more now we got more. I was already dealing with competing with quote unquote real women. Now I gotta deal with trans women. So it's like that. Like, is that something that you've heard in your arenas as well?
No, most of the people I deal with have a fairly open mind. So, I mean, I'm more like, yo, if we can get more people to the fight to help women reach equality, why not? And honestly, I don't look at there's enough, honestly, there's someone out there for everybody. So I don't look at like anybody as being my competition per se.
Flex.
I mean, yeah,
Nice
it's like,
flex, Holly.
Yeah, like, no, but if I'm someone who believes in empowering women, in general, I'm going to empower people, like all women, trans, biological women, because I think at the end of the day, if we're truly trying to achieve equality, equity, inclusiveness, being diverse, you really just have to be open to accepting that there are just other ways of living, that other people just live differently from you, but we can still have the same goal. And if, she's like, yo, we got to get these equal rights. Like, hey sis, come on over. Like,
let's
go.
Yeah.
Like, listen, there's some, that's how I just look at it. Like, I don't look at it as competition, because I'm just like, I want everybody to win in life. There's a lane for everybody. Okay.
Yeah.
Tyrone, the conversation, because I think the dialogue is important, and the fact that we're up here able to actually converse and talk about this under control, nobody's yelling and screaming at each other and everything like that. When you have so many people, because again, I saw, Dave, and I'm going to play the clip real quick, but I saw Dave at an awards, I think it was an award show or something, right after he did the special. And he was like, very, I don't care, if this is what canceling feels like, I love it and everything like that. And he got a standing ovation. I noticed that the entire arena stood on their feet. So what that tells me is there's a lot of people that share his sentiment and maybe don't have the platform. And what my question would be is it because there's a lack of understanding, because there's a lack of communication between the communities, so that people can kind of understand the trans, and the LGBTQ problems, and not even necessarily problems, but the issues that they deal with? Is that really what it is? Is it the fact that there's not any real dialogue going on? It's just a lot of shouting across the fence.
Well, before I dive into that, I do want to just point out that the big problem is, of course, white supremacy. But I do think that that there's something to be said for, I'm 37 and I was raised pretty traditionally. You know what I mean? So my ideas on the idea of somebody being gay or somebody being trans have evolved over time because I've learned more. But early on in my life, I was using language that was terrible, and I was using, I was making fun of people and stuff like that. I mean, I can cop to that because, we were kind of raised that, like Monique was talking about earlier, that like certain things look weak and, that kind of thing. And so that sort of idea was deeply ingrained in us. So I do think that there's a lot of conversation to be had, especially in our community, about you know, that kind of deeply ingrained homophobia, where it's not necessarily that we're out being malicious and you know, being mean and stuff like that, but there's this kind of like recoil effect that we have when presented with something different. You know, we're just like, oh wait, I don't know if I like this, or I don't know if I agree with it, you know, that kind of thing. It's those things come from a lot of just, you know, it's kind of traditional almost, you know, where you know, I was, for example, growing up, you know, I'm a straight man, so life is pretty easy for me, but like growing up, I could imagine being somebody who identified as gay or was gay, because my dad was somebody who was like very against the idea of it and would be very vocal about that to his kids. You know what I mean? And those kind of, I mean, I couldn't imagine what effect that would have on somebody who was having trouble with their identity. Mm-hmm. You know, luckily for me, that didn't have much of an effect on me because I was a straight dude, and I am a straight dude. So I never had to deal with that. But those kind of conversations absolutely should happen, to where, like Monique was getting at earlier, again, like that support system. As soon as somebody is like, hey, you know, I feel this way, that support system should kick in and be like, hey, you know, we're all the same community here. You know, we embrace each other. Let's support each other. Let's, you know, let's fight for each other. I think that's absolutely something that should be happening in, you know, in greater numbers and just overall.
Well, that's what the point of this whole show was about, was to have the conversation and show that this is something that you can do. You can have the dialogue. You can have a constructive conversation without yelling across the fence and not coming up with a resolution. But earlier, you know, this week, after the special, there was an individual by the name of Jacqueline Moore, which is a trans woman, who is also or was the executive producer and showrunner for Dear White People. She came out and basically said that she was going to terminate her interactions with Netflix because she felt as though they were blatantly helping to perpetuate hate by playing the Dave Chappelle special. Here's the clip, and it kind of we'll go into that a little bit. It just says a little bit. So okay. So, I mean, after seeing that, well, let me get that off there. All right, go ahead, man.
Boy, listen. This is how I feel about this lady. I watched her show. This show's been on for a long time. I think it's been maybe 3-4 years, maybe longer than that.
That was longer than that.
The show premiered. I love black shows. I love shows about the black experience. I love shows about who teaches white people how do we view the world and how can they be able to understand us or understand, and maybe with that treat us differently or equally because they might understand where we're coming from. So I love this type of shows. Anything that has to do with the black experience or the black point of view, I'm with it. That show was marketed very, very hard to the black community as a black show, as a show with a black perspective. All right.
Yes.
So I watched the first episode. Within the first 20 minutes of the episode, I'm seeing things that I'm like, I don't agree with that. We wouldn't do that. That girl tripping. That girl wouldn't. A black girl wouldn't be doing all that. That's a little extra. You know what I'm saying? So I dismissed it. Stopped watching it. Now I find out that the producer of the show, the person who was pushing the show, is a white woman. And you got the nerve to tell me that you feel disrespected. Well, woman, I feel disrespected because you had me bamboozled to thinking that your product was about the male, the female black vision of a woman on the white man world in a college, when the whole time it was just a white woman telling you how she felt about things and adding whatever she felt that she thought was the black experience into the show. That is way more disrespectful to me than anything David could have said, because a lot of people didn't find out that she was that it was a white woman until this came out. So never did you come out and say, hey, by the way, my show is about the black experiences, but it's about what I know about the black experience, what I've heard about the black experience, what I lived through with being around black folk. And this is why I say the things I say and push the things I push in the show. She never came out and say that. So that to me is a huge problem with that lady to begin with.
Well, that kind of basically, because I was doing all of that to bring us to the closing and answer this last question, which is because, and I'm going to go to you first, Tyrone, because we've talked about this numerous times, and that is cancel culture real? And I'm going to go ahead and let you take off because I already know what your answer is.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've had evidence that it's not. I mean, Dave Chappelle's doing great. You know what I mean? Like all this discussion, and Dave Chappelle is counting his money, and he can come back and do a special. If he told Netflix right now, hey, I want to do another special next week, they'll give him millions of dollars to do it. You know what I mean? And just like with this woman who is trying to use her voice to make a point, Netflix was like, I don't care. Which goes to further show that if you don't have power, you don't do anything. There's no big looming cancel culture out to get you. You know what I mean? Are you messing with people's money is what it is. And Dave Chappelle's not messing with people's money enough for them to be like, nah, we're not messing with him anymore. And I'm not a big fan of Dear White People. I didn't really. I got into the second season and was like, nah. But I do want to say though, just to their credit, the show is created and written by people of color. The producer, right? That producer is white, but as a showrunner and stuff like that is like. So it was created by black voices. So I just don't want to. I don't want to make it sound like it's.
Yeah, he's right. It was created by black, but she was the executive producer and showrunner. For 4 years. But yeah, he's absolutely right. It does have most of the other the director is black, so yeah.
But also it's kind of like it's not great.
It wasn't that good. That's why it wasn't great at all. Yeah, it wasn't that good. That's why it's not even on anymore.
Yeah.
So, Holly, how about you? Is cancel culture real?
No, I don't think it's real. I mean, I think people's bags will be hurt for a little bit, but they come back eventually, or in a different way. Just take a break for a little bit, and they kind of reemerge. So. No, I don't think so.
Okay. Minnie.
Cancel culture might not be real, but blackballing is. If you don't have the power, if you're somebody coming out, you're just starting off, and you say something that community might not like, whether it's LGBTQ or whatever community, Jewish community, black community, Puerto Rican community, and you will be blackballed. That is a thing. That will never go away. So cancel culture might not be a thing if you got the power for it. If you got the money for it, if you got the notoriety for it, let Minnie come out in Las Vegas tomorrow and say some crazy shit, and I'll be blackballed. So,
Monique, is cancel culture real?
I think cancel culture is actually real when it's being pushed by our community, Black people. And the reason saying that is I can relate to the baby, the comments that he made. And lately you haven't seen a lot of the baby. He still has a lot of his fans, his same regular fans that like him. Shoot, I'm a fan of the baby. But I think that, again, when you look at the head of the entire industry, TV, marketing, as far as when it comes to hip hop, R&B and stuff, is ran by white people. So again, those are the ones that have the money. Those are the ones that make their how would you say, like their soldiers, their foot soldiers, which are the executive producers or whoever who talk to the artists or their management staff to let them know, hey, this is what's going on. This is what you did. We don't agree with it. So we're going to sit you down for a minute. And I think that the more and more that they use us as the tool to get that message out, then it'll continue to grow. Now, does that take away from the Black community wanted to support a certain artist? No, because there are plenty LGBT people who love the baby or love Bootsy or the certain hip hop artists that come out and have something to say about, gay comments. But again, all of this is ran by white people. So I think it's all circled around the white supremacy and how the hierarchy of them and how they work and how their secret society is and how they use it or infiltrate it to make it do a pyramid scheme or whatever to try to counsel us as a whole. So it doesn't matter. And like I made a comment to you yesterday, if you think about it, RuPaul has never been in any kind of situation where he's about to be canceled or anything. And you know why? Because he tap dances to the white people's music. He tap dances to the white man's number. He tap dances to the white man's pen that writes his check. And I understand he's, inclusive about his for and no more, but you rarely see him promote anything for Black Lives Matter or Black people. I mean, he's very inclusive and diverse when it comes to his show and, supporting the LGBT movement or community, but he's not on there with 35 all Black people. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And no, I don't think that it should just be based off of Black people and it's just all for people. But, I mean, it kind of you can tell the difference. You know what I'm saying? You could tell, just like Oprah, she's a token Black person for white America, just like Tyler Perry. So, I mean, again, I just think it's controlled by the white people that's at the head.
Wow. I personally think that cancel culture does exist, and they're doing a very good job of making it seem as though it doesn't. And that, it depends, like many said, it depends on who you are. J.K. Rowling, who wrote all the Harry Potter books. We did all that. We have not heard from her since she made her comments. I don't know if to Tyrone's point, she's taking a vacation and she'll be back. And then we'll see, a new Harry Potter movie. I hope so.
Well, I mean, there are new Harry Potter things coming out. There's like some.
She's not associated with them. So
I would not be surprised if she was getting money.
She's still getting checked.
Yeah. So she might not be
like,
out there doing press, but she's
not relevant in the press, but she's
right.
Yeah. So to your point, Tyrone, you may be absolutely right that at some point people do have a resurgence. We may see the baby come back to relevancy after Dave just pleaded for his safe return. So we may see him back doing music again. But I do think again that these type of conversations need to happen. We need to swallow our pride on both sides. Because just like Tyrone, just like many, I was raised the same way. I was raised by just my mom. My father got murdered when I was 3, so I didn't have a man in the house. So my mom felt the need to be doubly tough. You know what I'm saying? So like there was no whining, no crying, all of that. There was none of that allowed in my house. And my mom don't play that now. Like if I call my mom crying, she'd be like, "Man up!" Like I'm like, "What you?" I'm like, "Don't even talk to me until you stop." So that perpetuation of those type of traumas and those type of things that you deal with from that age, and then coming up into the society we're in now. I think if you take the time to have these discussions with people rather than just assume because we're in this era that they should accept, but yet without any type of dialogue, I think you always are going to get a rebellious response when someone feels as though you're forcing them to do anything that they're not used to or that they don't want to do. So, after having this conversation with you today, Monique, I've learned so much more. I feel so much better about the community. about you as an individual. Even though I felt good about you as an individual anyway, but I think just for people to see that we can sit here and have this great dialogue and come away with learning something from each other is a testament to what we can accomplish when we just take the time and listen. And with that being said, I just wanted to do a couple of things. There was a couple of questions, just a couple of questions in the comment section. They've been going crazy over here. Typically, I put it on the screen, but we've been just going in so heavy that I've just been on this. But Lisa had a question, and she said it's a totally ignorant question here, so I can educate myself, and that's what we hope you can do for her. She said, if you're taking testosterone, for example, are you still on the same level as a male who has been, let's say, strength training for football all their life, or would it take a long time to achieve that as your body transitions?
So let me understand what she's saying. Mm-hmm. So basically, like, okay, so if you, how could I say? Well, if you're like a football player and you start to take estrogen, then your body gradually, I wouldn't say decompose, but your muscles and stuff begin to break down. So, I mean, it's a lot easier for some people who are not as athletic as others to transition a little bit more easier, or a lot smoother. So I think it only depends on that individual. And this might sound funny, but I don't think that being a trans is for everyone. I think that, you know, there are certain people who were just predestined to be that way. You know, like I was more fleshy, more feminine on the feminine side of shape like my mom and, you know, resemble my mom. So it wasn't a lot of stuff that I had to do to transition. So I think it just depends on that particular individual and their body makeup, because hormones do something completely different to everybody.
Okay. And it looks like you have a lot of fans going on in the comment section. A lot of people are appreciative of you coming through and sharing your perspective. You know, I'm seeing people learning something new, and that is always a good thing. So, you know, kudos to you, kudos to this conversation. And again, thank you for coming through and just taking the time to have this productive conversation with us. Minnie, same to you. Thank you so much for coming through and talking about this because this is a very touchy subject, and we made it seem effortless with the conversation. So
thank y'all for your
Can I say something real quick? Say something real quick. I want to say something to my brother. I do a lot of shows a month, and most of the shows I do a lot of jokes about my brother. And a lot of people don't understand that we have a mutual agreement when it comes to that. And it's not something that I'm over here bashing him or whatever. I don't do any gay bashing jokes. I do jokes about our relationship. Mm-hmm. And I want to let him know, because sometimes he gets a little bit of people who don't understand our relationship will come at him because of me, as in they'll watch my shows and think that they can come at him with some of these jokes that I'm saying without understanding that it's between brothers type thing. I want to let you know, I have never loved you more than the day you came out to me. Wow. That day I knew who you were and you knew who I was. And ever since then, you have been the best thing when it comes to me understanding life that there ever could be. So I apologize if I ever have done anything on stage that has caused you any kind of harm, because I love you, brother, and you are always going to be my little man, no matter how tall you get, you little bastard. All right? So I want you to know that. And I mean that, because
you got the waterworks. You got my waterworks, man. I
mean that on the real, and niggas know who I am. They know where I'm from. They know this doesn't happen a lot. They know, you know what I'm saying? They know everything about me. So streets is street. But this is real and this is love. And I just wanted to put that to you, because I would never want you to feel that I'm taking advantage of our relationship, or that I'm taking advantage of your situation to monetize it, or to do something that is not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to put it out for everyone to understand how everyone is everyone, and we all deserve to be loved.
Man, that was powerful, bro.
That's good.
And man, like, man, that's that. I want to reiterate that point, because like I said, I have a lot of family members that are very close to me, that are gay and you know have their own experiences, and I don't care. Like, I really don't care what you do. Like, I'm still gonna love you. You still my family. It does not change a thing. So, like, you know, love who you want to love, and we encourage that here on the Multiverse, to love who you want to love, and that's one of the things that we end the show with every single week, and nothing's gonna change. It's gonna be the same way. So we're gonna let Bernie say something, and then I'm gonna let you. Matter of fact, we'll go ahead and let y'all do that first. Monique, what we do when we wrap up the show is we give everybody an opportunity to plug whatever they got going on, tell people where they can get at you if you want people to get at you, and things of that nature. So I'm gonna go ahead and give you the floor first and allow you to go ahead and talk to everybody and tell everybody where they can reach you, and if you got anything up and coming that they should tune into.
Okay, well, cool. I actually have a beauty line that's getting ready to come out in a few more months. I'm working on that. But as far as connecting with me, my Instagram is miss.prettybunny, and the pretty and the bunny is spelled with the I. So that's PRETTIBUNNI. My email is on there as well, bunny.carter@icloud.com. So if you have any questions, be free to send me a friend request or a DM or whatever, and we can go from there. And thank you guys again for letting me, speak on this platform.
And thank you. And please reach out to Monique and I mean, if she's been this open with us with conversation, if there's ever a question that you feel like you know, like she can explain or just have a talk with you and make you feel like, you know, like she made us feel today. So Minnie, after that really touching thing to your brother, man, and look, man, shout out to your brother, man, because look, my brother probably wouldn't have did that. Yeah. I'm just saying. I love you, Jay, but I mean, you probably wouldn't have did that. But you know what I'm saying? that shows real love, man, and that shows the type of dude you are, man, and that's why I rocks with you, man. But go ahead and tell everybody. I know you got a show coming up. I know you got a show coming up real soon, like tomorrow type.
Yeah,
you know,
I got my open mic tomorrow in Sanford. If you're in Florida, I run an open mic at Toro's. That's in Lake Mary Boulevard and 1792. Toro's Bar and Grill. We own it. Come out here. Open mic is free. Starts at 8:15. If you want to know where to find my shows at, what I got coming up, Mini Baby Grogu on Instagram. That's Mini BABYGROGU. All right. You can. I always post whatever show I got going on. So definitely look up there. Thank you for having me. I love you guys. Monique, I want to steal your dog. I'm just let you know that. You know, I'm just letting you know.
Keep it away from the dog.
But thank you guys for having me. For real. It meant everything. I apologize for getting a little mushy at the end, but it's something that I've been meaning to do for a while, and I felt that this was the best time for me to actually express that, knowing that he's gonna be watching. So his name is Roberto, just like me, because my dad is an egotistical piece of shit. So Roberto, te amo, tú lo sabes, papi. Siempre conmigo, está en mi corazón, mi amor.
Well, you don't need to apologize for that, first of all.
Yeah, you don't.
Yeah, I want to let you know that. But can I real quick just want to say thank you, Monique. Thank you, Minnie. Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Ty, for all the honest conversation tonight. I think it was just good to just have this honest back and forth conversation and make some real, hopefully make some real progress and do that for people watching, and hopefully y'all can have your own conversations. Thank you.
Oh man. Well, Tyrone, you also tell everybody where where they can get at you.
Don't get at me.
No. He's so toxic.
Yeah, okay. No, y'all can catch me at Tyrone Thornhill on all social media. Of course, every Wednesday at 6:30 for Multiverse, Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. for the New Blurred Order. And just thank you for watching, and thank you for commenting and being here.
And shortly you'll be able to catch him in New York. So stay tuned for that. Holly, you're up.
Okay. All right. So I just want to thank everybody. I love open dialogue conversations, and I love everybody in the comments. And this is just overall a great conversation. I learned a lot. I hope everybody learned a lot. And that's why you need to subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Multiverse, and like our Facebook page. And again, you can always find me at So Please Understand on YouTube. Subscribe to my channel. and at Instagram at Holly Noon.
Wow, so smooth, so smooth. And it's finally on me, and I'm gonna keep it really, really short. But I wanna thank the entire panel. I'm telling you, this I've been looking forward to this all week. I mean, my wife can tell you I've not slept just because I was so excited to finally have this conversation and be able to just show people that dialogue and patience and just a little listening goes a long, long way. And you know, Dave said, "Stop punching down on my people," and that's very, very important. That is I mean, that was the most powerful thing that he said the entire show was, "Don't punch down. Stop punching down on our people. Let's stop punching down on each other. Let's just be able to listen and be able to have these kind of conversations, because this is what we need to unify as a culture and as a community, and not communities, a community, one world, one new world order where everyone is able to live and not be judged for who they are or what they do." So with that being said, I'm gonna let Bernie, as he normally does, talk to y'all, because he's the greatest that ever did it, man. So Bernie, talk to him.
Boy, just be yourself. If people don't like you if you're being yourself, fuck them. Let me tell you something. I used to go with a girl, man, about your age. I tried to please her Peppy all the time. Went out my way to please her Peppy. I come in one day, I said, "Nice weather we have." Said, "You can't say that. You can't say that, it might rain." I said, "Nice tie you got on." Said, "You can't say that." My wife tried to choke me with it. Point I'm trying to tell you, son, is be yourself. People don't like how you be yourself, fuck them. Fuck them up against the wall. Wear handcuffs on them and crazy glue on their lips. That's all you do.
Words to live by.
You live by them, son.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the club now, Uncle Vester, and just go.
You go and enjoy yourself, boy.
I knew you. I did that for you, Roberto. So on behalf of myself, Holly Noon, Tyrone Thornhill, Minnie Grogu, and Monique, the model. Until next week, we are the Multiverse, and we are out.